Previously on The Expanse. Zero-G boning, or boning in space, followed by our heroes getting boned in space. That's what's happened last time on The Expanse.
Congressional Republic. Move and you die.
Alright, I hope you guys liked my little recap intro there. I thought it was a little bit humorous. Maybe you guys are getting a little bit of a chuckle out of it. So, yeah, this is episodes 3 and 4 of my review of The Expanse. And this one's going to be a little bit different because now my webcam and editing software seems to be running at, well, at least 50% better than it was last time. So, you'll get a little bit of mixed bag of window and window, overlay commentary, and my ugly mug fucking taking up your whole screen, fucking swearing away. So, as you'll see in the future there, Staff Sergeant Bobby Draper, Gunnery Sergeant Bobby Draper says, hit your tits and pucker up, boys and girls, let's go for a ride. So without further ado, here's episodes 3 and 4 of The Expanse. Okay, so first thing first here, we have Dimitri, Miller's partner, the titular, I guess you would say, side main character of the series, Miller. Now, this is going to be one of the last episodes where you really see Dimitri, so don't pay it no mind. I just thought it was a good little interesting scene to add in here where he's getting belter lessons from a belter sex worker, a la Pretty Woman style. So let's take a quick boo at this. Like, honestly, who goes to an escort for language lessons? Alright, like that, that's just humorous any way you look at it, but here we have it. So, yeah. It's like, I don't know about you, but if I were single and in the presence of a barely dressed escort that I've just paid for, language lessons are going to be the last thing on my mind. But, but you also get to see here the integral gesturals in with the language. You'll notice that there's very specific hand signs that go with certain words. And it's a good way to, you know, segue into how humanity would evolve. So I think that's a good look at this. So episode 3 and 4 basically have a little bit more, I would guess you would say, almost like a red herring character development, because you get to see a juxtaposition of how these characters actually play out in the later half of the series compared to how they're portrayed on this episode or even through the first half of season 1. You get the impression, like, I'll be referring to Christian Avasarella as the Viper for this episode, because she behaves exactly like a fucking goddamn pit viper. Lies in wait, doesn't care, just gets in there and takes what she wants. And it's, you know what, it's cold, it's ruthless, but I'll give her some props for actually, you know, being able to pull that off especially in a large government, all right? Trying to move unseen, manipulating things behind the scenes. It's not even the fact that she's a woman. It's that trying to manipulate that large of a situation behind the scenes of the government while remaining relatively unseen by the public, that's a very hard thing to do. Right? That's like conspiracy level fucking shit. So, with that, we give... I'm going to give the Viper a little bit of a hard time on this episode because honestly, like, by the end of this episode, I hated the character. I thought she was a heartless bitch. And again, you'll see by the mid run of this breakdown where you see her willing to trample on lifelong family friends to achieve her goals, which to me is just a complete and total fucking thing that you shouldn't be doing, but it's TV, right? So, we'll carry on, and you'll get to see a little bit of the, coming up here is the Big D, as I call it, alright? The MCRN Donager, the flagship of the Martian fleet. This thing is just a thing of beauty. And you only get to see a few cut scenes of the exterior in episode 3, called Remember the Cant. And you'll see why towards the end of the episode, why they refer to Remember the Cant, because if you remember at the end of episode 2, James Holden sent that message out with Amos's gun at the back of his head. And Amos, my favorite character of the whole show, Amos. He's just amazing. Watching a moral psychopath portrayed so well on TV is just, it's just wonderful. But to carry on, we have the Viper, and then, yeah, so James Holden sent that message out. It literally got picked up by everybody in the belt. They managed to beat the Martian jammers, and it gets broadcasted to Ceres, where it inflames the OPA, the Outer Planets Alliance, those anarcho-communists. And in this episode, you actually get to see an introduction of one of the main 3 players in the belt. You'll get to see Anderson Dawes. All right. Now, there's the thing of it is it's I don't know if it was intentional, but there's a very big what's the word I'm looking for here? There's almost like a yeah, almost like a comparison to Soviet era, like the October Revolution, and where Trotsky, Stalin, and Lenin, tried to unite the Soviet people to overthrow the bourgeoisie, and so you know how the fucking Soviet Revolution went. But you get to see similarities here. Like, I really don't know who I would pin as Stalin or Trotsky. Actually, you know what? I would probably pin Kamina. She's one of the other major players in the belt. You'll see her later on. She is right hands with Johnson, who I would consider to be, the equivalent of Marx. Yeah, in the whole thing, or even Lenin, because they want a stable nation state that represents the belt. It's idealistic, but it is what it is. And you know what? You wind up cheering a lot for the belt through this, and it's weird because this show will actually make you cheer for all 3 factions at different points. At some points you want to cheer for Earth, sometimes you want to cheer for Mars, sometimes you want to cheer for the belt. Me, I'm a fucking belter through and through. Fucking love the belters. Not the political system, don't get me wrong, before you throw up your fucking red hammers and sickles at me and start whipping commie around. I like the character development and the absolute ingeniousness of it. It just reminds me of, what space travel might actually be like in the near future. So with that, let's bring up the Big D. Okay, so coming up here we have a nice, beautiful shot of the Big D, or that's what I call it, the Big D, but this is the MCRN Donager, flagship of the Martian fleet. You'll see the nice railguns on the side. Just the sheer size of this thing. Like, look at the inside, just the cavernous hold. And there's our captain and our lovely crew. See, like, basically, when they get taken aboard the Donager, you'll see them, sitting there kind of, and no one knows what's going on yet, right? Everyone's kind of got their own little conspiracy theory about what's up, and Mars is trying to play the OPA narrative. The crew thinks it was Mars that did it. Earth thinks Mars did it. OPA thinks it was fucking Earth and Mars. It's just a big circle jerk of fucking conspiracy theories, and you don't really get the real big picture of what's going on till a little bit later in the season. But like the setup they bring to it, it throws you for a loop. Like, you think one thing is going to happen, and then boom, something else. So we get them being taken aboard the Donager, and then this crew's going to get scanned by the Martian Marine Corps, which is basically like their military branch on the ship. Think just as exactly as it sounds, the Marines. They get scanned, and everyone's, sort of got a smirk on their face, a defiant smirk, especially the fucking medic and Amos. Amos has got a big old smirk on his face because no one seems to know anything about him. And Alex, Kamal, seems to gets a different thing, and they all sort of stare at him like, what's up? So as they're throwing the rest of them in the jail cell, they're taking Alex away, and then you start to see the crew actually maybe just a bit care for one another, because if it's not their own self-interest where they're wondering who's saying what to the Martians, but it does a really great job of setting up the future here of this, especially like a good another 20 minutes in the episode when you see the fruits of their interrogation trope. The Martians trying to sort of suss out how the how this event played out, while not realizing that no one has a goddamn clue about what's actually going on. And that seems to be just the bulk of, like, I would say the first half of this season is no one really knows what's happening, and everyone's rushing to figure out what's happening, because they all know they're being played, but they don't know by who, by what, or for what reason. And it's great to watch the interplay between the characters on the show. Try to suss this out. Like, you get to see an introduction of another character who I really love in the show, Admiral Souther, in just a few minutes. And you see him and why I would respect him as a military leader, because he's interested in absolute proof of what's going on before willing to commit his soldiers and his ships to dying on the front line against an enemy he knows stands a very real chance of beating them. That's a smart commander, someone who's willing to look outside of what's going on and see the bigger picture, and not just commit his troop because his government wants to. That's a good leader right there, and you get to see it. And so we'll bring up the video clip now. Just watch how Admiral Souther behaves, and then you see how Christian will behave, and then you get to see how Sadovir, Aaron Wright, behaves, and realize that they're setting something up here, because none of them actually are like this, with the exception of Souther. Souther's as straight up and down as you can get. Military officer. They discuss Holden's past, which I'm going to bring up here in a few minutes, because it's rather important to the respect that Holden will garner later on as the captain. But again, you'll see that in a little bit here. Like, he doesn't become the captain until episode 5 or 6, really. But we'll see. So without that, here is Souther and the UN power playing to figure out what the fuck is going on, and doing the best they can with their vast resources but limited understanding.
I don't even know that the Martians are behind this. We have the word of some ice hauler named James Holden.
He was a naval officer.
You saw his service record.
He has no reason to lie. Sirius is our station, the key to the belt. With those resources, Mars could finally cut the cord to Earth.
If you want a war with Mars, this will get you one. But it's my soldiers that will end up dying for
Well,
it.
the Secretary General wants a plan of action, Admiral.
And it can't be. Let's just sit and wait.
Unless we have proof, that's exactly what we should be doing. Fleet Command will not support redeployment unless we have proof. I seriously doubt the Secretary General will want to override us on this.
So yeah, that was Souther really fucking laying it down as a solid military commander. Like, that's a commander I could get behind. Someone who wants... I understand that in war things are fluid, fog of war, things, aren't always what they seem, but, you have to respect a commander that's willing to put his career and reputation on the line before committing his troops to battle. That is a solid commander right there, and I can't say that enough. So, yeah. Hats off to Admiral Souther. My long flowing locks. Okay, so this here you see basically where I'm going to give Christian her epithet of the Viper, alright? This man here is a UN ambassador to Mars, loves Mars, and you can't, that's the kind of guy you want as an ambassador to Mars, alright? Some guy who can empathize and understand with them, love the culture, because that's the kind of guy you want to bridge between the thing here. So we're going to watch a few seconds here just to watch how close the relationship is, and then you'll see what happens a little bit later on and what kind of monster Christian is actually capable of being. And she realizes it too. So there's this. You see he's, better just strolling on up.
Says I can beat you to the end of the concourse.
Bubbles.
Frank,
So yeah, you see, they're friendly, they like each other.
I need a drink.
It's almost like a mother-daughter, or sorry, father-daughter relationship, or uncle-niece relationship. And you get it, you can see how they interact. There's a deep familial love there, even though they're not actually of the same family. But the fact that she's willing to use these people to further her own goals is what really does it for me.
You'll never find.
I can't get behind that. But at the same time, we have, it's government, right? Sometimes you've got to bend the rules to save your people, but the way she's just willing to run roughshod all over, her own kith and kin just doesn't sit well with me. I know I've said it a few times now, but yeah, like, it's saddening, and you'll get to see how sad it is a little bit later on. Alright, so this is just a quick little aside to this video. Like, I mentioned in my last episode there that the Mormons, for some reason, are still a thing in this future, and yes, they are just as cringy and just as ridiculous as they are now. They really don't harm no one. They I guess, but they're just sort of there, and they just seem to show up everywhere. Like, what's, like, I don't know. But yeah, just like, we'll watch this here quickly.
Excuse me, sir.
You see them?
Do you like to laugh?
Yeah, they're just as annoying as in real life.
I like to laugh. Great.
That they
Now,
dress
I
just
know
the
you say
same.
Mormons aren't funny, but
At least he's self-aware that Mormons aren't generally funny.
Can I put your name on the list?
Aside from, I guess, what was it? They're the South Park guys.
How about next week? It would be my pleasure.
So yeah, I guess this Mormon has a little stand-up comedy routine.
All right.
I love the holographic technology they've got here in the pads and cell phones and whatnot. You never see the technology like behind it, but it's just, it's believable. So next into this little foray here, we're back on the Donager, and the MCRN is going to begin their interrogation and, I guess, mental maneuvering of their captives, the crew of the night, former of the Canterbury. And you don't really see much emphasis behind it. You just have to sort of take it on faith that it works. But they don't use machines to detect lies. They have almost like this super Ritalin that they'll take, and within a few seconds, I guess, it causes hyper-focused awareness. They can detect facial tics and features, detect perspiration. I don't know the science behind it. The show doesn't really explain it, but it's a good little, I guess, tiny MacGuffin, instead of having to come up with an overly complicated, production lie detector. So I thought that was a really neat approach here, and then you get to see how their interrogation techniques mirror very much the way we do things now. They'll feed a little bit of a truth into a lie to make it easier to swallow, try to get the crew to distrust each other, break it down, and eventually they're hoping that the truth will come out once the crew starts squabbling with each other. Which kind of does and kind of doesn't, because it doesn't work in the fact because the crew doesn't know anything. They don't know fuck all. They don't know why they were attacked. They think it was, Mars, doing it. Mars thinks it was the OPA and Naomi Nagata, the belter that was on the night with them. They think she did it. And they've got pretty decent circumstantial evidence to support that assertion, but it really doesn't pan out within the next 40 minutes of the show. So, especially when it comes to episode 4, their CQB, because that is the episode that got me hooked on this show. Just the sheer fucking awesomeness of it. Which is where you're going to see a lot more of the clips of me talking over it, but you'll get to see like some of the really cool stuff, like the fucking, like the Donager go to fucking fight, and you get to see the 3 types of fighting that they'll do, and how much thought they really put into this. So, with that, we see that the interrogation is beginning, and now it goes back to Earth after the first couple of interrogations. They go back to Earth, and you see Christian again pushing Franklin DeGraff, the ambassador, her childhood, I guess family friend, uncle, fatherish figure. She sets this guy up, well, at the same time, saying that Earth always must come first. And I get it that, there's a certain amount of nationalistic pride, but you can't allow your nationalistic pride to overrule fucking common sense and reason. Like, if, you know, they allowed nationalistic pride to fucking take over anytime there was a hint at a conspiracy during the Cold War, Earth would be a smoking pile of radioactive slag. And you get the impression that this is pretty close to happening again in the future here that you see in the Expanse between Earth and Mars. It's very much, even though it's ideologically similar, it's very different because they're both very much collectivist groups. Like, you've got the UN, which is very collectivist, and then the Martians are all united for one purpose, creating the world into a garden. It's a beautiful dream, don't get me wrong. Fuck. Make Mars great again. And but yeah, no, the interplay between the planets, there's no real correlation aside from loose threads that connect it to the Cold War, only in the terms of like really mutually assured destruction as opposed to ideological differences. So Mars continues to push the OPA narrative through this show, through this episode particularly, and you get to see it here real shortly. Like, you'll see Holden's motivation for the whole situation, sending out the distress signal and how he's going to use his former military training to kind of suss out what's going on with the Martians and try to turn the tables on them to save his own crew, which by his own guilt got them into that situation. Because if they hadn't answered the distress signal, they'd be fucking halfway to Ceres by now and no one would be the fucking wiser. But there would probably be a war. So now with that, we're going to take a look at the introduction of Anderson Dawes, one of the three big players. So coming right up now is Anderson Dawes and his introduction.
Coleman gotta die sometime.
About now.
Give the Martians their water! We all don't know animals.
You have every right to be angry.
You should be angry.
So that was Dawes. And you can see, like, alright, even though he's a bit of a shorter, smaller character in terms of stature, he still commands great respect. And you know what? You got to give the man that. Is because he does have the respect of those around him. You saw immediately that the most belligerent belter there was immediately cowed the minute fucking Dawes said, give the Martians their water. Because they were still, OPA's pissed off about, Martians attacking the Canterbury and destroying their fucking water supply. And so the OPA says fuck you to the Martian ships docked at Ceres and says no water for you. But Dawes knows that by engaging in the same behavior that they suspect the Martians and the Earthers, or Inulota as they refer to them as, he knows that by treating them the same way that they treat the Belters, that they're no better, and that they need to be better to be seen as equals in the eyes of the Inulota, even though he could probably care less. But he still wants the respect of those around him in terms of other nations to respect his people, the Belters. And I can give the man respect for that. Any man is willing to, put himself up there to defend his people, even if they can be, a bunch of fucking, anarcho-communist fucking spurgs sometimes, you still got to give the guy respect for that. So that was Dawes, and so we're back on the Donager again, and here comes the fucking thing that even as a military guy myself, or ex-military guy myself, you tend to fall into this habit of a fucking pissing contest between branches and armies, alright? And this is a bit of a fucking sticking point, because you should never assume why someone got out of the army, alright? Like me, I got out because I got injured, and I just did not want to put up with the endless parade of being treated like trash, which happens when you get out of the army. But again, that's neither here nor there. I still have nothing but mostly good things to say about the Canadian Armed Forces, more the people than the organization itself. But again, neither here nor there. But yeah, never assume, because Alex, having been interrogated first by the Martians, and being a Martian himself, wants to believe his fellow countrymen over someone he really doesn't know. And I get it. But never, ever question why someone got out until they tell you why they got out. And if it turns out that that person lied to you about why they got out, then so be it. But, you know, that's their credibility, not yours. So with that, you get to see the fucking pissing contest, because Holden was discharged for disciplinary issues. He took a swing at his superior officer, missed, and Alex Kamal did 20 years and got out honorably after he completed his contract, which is good on him. Like, but you get to see, like, even though he's very proud of it, you know, there's something he feels he's missing, and I've got a bit of a theory about it, but I'll make another video because it's a conspiracy theory regarding the show, but especially regarding Alex, but just about what happens basically from the next episode on. So, but Alex makes an assumption. That assumption almost gets him punched in the fucking mouth. Rightly so. Alright, and fucking Holden makes an assumption. It almost gets him punched in the fucking mouth. Rightly fucking so. So, again, like, Army guys, we fall into this all the fucking time. It's kind of tiresome. It's a bit of a trope, but it's what it is. So.
Chief, settle down. They let me clean up out of respect. Respect? Yeah, you see, I served. And I was honorably discharged. There's a hell of a lot more than I can say about you, cowboy.
You'll see, that was just fucking cocky. And if I were in Holden's shoes, I probably would have fucking knocked the cocksucker right in the back of the head. But again, that's more assumptions. So you get with that, and then the rest of them begin to show up. All right. The fucking Mars is still very much pushing the OPA narrative with their interrogations. They're pushing Naomi, and you'll see that suddenly they discover that Naomi, they think, well, at least Lopez, the Martian commander, not the captain, but the one below her, starts wondering whether or not that she was actually responsible. After he realizes after her interrogation that she didn't cause the damage, but she's wondering if he's still wondering if she didn't inadvertently work with someone to cause the situation at hand. Again, that's more military fucking reaching, but it is what it is. So, fucking, yeah. So we carry on. They've reached the point where they've put all the crew back together. And fuck me, does Amos not disappoint. Immediately checks on the one he's the most loyal to, Naomi. Alright, checks on her right away. And then they start to get into that pissing match where they're just like, are you it? Are you it? Are you it? Back and forth. Are you OPA? You know, who knows anything about you? To Amos, you know, what the fuck is the Martian doing in uniform? Is he working with them? Did he cause all this? And you get to see a the briefest glimpse of how loyal that fucking Amos can be. Alright? And it's kind of heartening to actually see him extend that loyalty to that crew later on in the series as they become more familiar with each other. But he immediately grabs what he considers to be the traitor of the lot, fucking Alex in his Martian uniform. Says, hey fucker, you ever hear of human shields? Grabs her, tells Naomi, call the fucking guards. Alright, we'll use him to soak up all the fucking bullets, and then we'll try to make our escape, which is obviously impossible on a fucking warship. You know, when they don't even realize that the other their shuttle or skiff, you know, is damaged possibly well beyond repair. And, yeah, you discover that the medic, oh my god, what a bitch. Fuck me. One of the funniest scenes, though, in this whole fucking thing there is when the fucking medic goes off and says, well, fuck, I told them whatever they wanted to hear. It's like, you know what? Everyone knows a guy like that will say anything to save his own skin. And it's funny. So, yeah, we'll take a quick look at that, alright? So this is what I was talking about here. This is the, where you get to see how funny and frightened and much of a biggity bitch that the medic is, and how fucking dangerously loyal that Amos is, and why I love his character so much. So first thing,
Naomi.
Amos wants to know, where's Naomi? And here comes the anger.
What the hell is this? Join up?
You know, indignant anger.
That's an option? What did you guys tell them? To suck it.
Everything.
That's why I love him.
I told them everything. Anything they wanted to know, I told them. I think I made some stuff up at the end. I can't remember. I just kept talking.
Everyone knows a guy like
They
that.
told me
So,
Naomi's OPA.
you know, believes whatever he's told them,
Who cares?
makes things up to save his own skin.
They'll say anything to get in our heads.
Amos nails it right
They told
there.
me that you faked your medical records and signed on to the Cant to get away from a drug dealer who wanted you dead.
Well, that's true.
So yeah, you see right there why I consider the fucking medic to be just a big old biggity bitch. And then fucking how dangerously loyal Amos is, and why I love him. Like, just the living, breathing death threat that he is to anyone that crosses him and whoever he's loyal to. Just, I can get behind and respect that. So, that's Amos, that's the crew, and fortunately, we won't get to see too much more of him. Fuck me. Is he a fucking annoying part of the show? Like, he's funny for about 2 or 3 parts, but that would wear thin real quick for the rest of the show. So that is getting pretty close to the end of episode 3 there. Remember the Cant, alright? Now, to sum this episode up, alright, I'm gonna close that part out with one last part where I kind of enjoy it and kind of really shows, you know, the animosity that some of these groups can face, you know, and what they can do to each other. Alright, which is no big shock there. Fucking humans have been fucking killing humans since the dawn of time. But, yeah, you see the Martian ploy. It works to a degree, trying to get the crew of the night, formerly of the Canterbury, to try to flip the fuck out, suss out who their own traitor is, which doesn't work because none of them are actually traitors. They're all just unwitting pawns in the game that's being played. Alright? Now, we'll finish off by, well, the crew is literally at each other's throats. You know, Amos is ready to fucking turn Alex into a human shield to try and escape with the Naomi. You got Holden finally, like, losing it and is just saying, fuck it. I'm going to say whatever it takes. He goes, yells to the fucking crew, hey, I'll talk to you, Captain. Alright? And kind of shocks everyone. And the Martians are just waiting outside, waiting for the first one to say that. So, they come on in, they bring him up, he meets the captain, and she says that, well, someone's coming. And with that, we're going to segue into one last clip here where the OPA have rioted on Ceres, caused a lot of damage. Fucking Dimitri, Miller's partner, goes down to past the Medina to where the hookers are, trying to save his little fucking tutor. Alright, okay, granted, I'll give you that. You know, she is pretty cute, and I'm sure she's relatively intelligent. Who knows, maybe he's got a real thing for her. Or maybe she's the only person that'll actually teach him fucking Belter. I'm thinking it's probably the latter, but a lot of the former too, because you see in the next episode how much, like, she comes and visits him and whatnot. But yeah, he gets fucking, why you don't fucking go alone in the middle of a dangerous situation. Because our fucking boy here, Dimitri, runs into the fucking goddamn OPA. And not like the government types OPA, but the hardliner terrorist types OPA guys. And, well, I'll give you a fucking quick little view here.
Remember the Cant.
Wham! Fucking stuck to the wall. Fucking, they stapled him to the wall. You know, if they'd rammed it up his ass, they would have fucking gone full Vlad the Impaler, but now they just stuck him to a wall. And in a rather gruesome way, too, fucking using a rock fucking hammer. Oh, nice. Nice little fucking scene there. But we're going to move on to the next part here. Part 4, CQB, the episode that got me hooked to this show. And this is going to be a shorter part. I'm going to be just a lot of clips of the side showing you the fucking weapons, the type of fight they're in, and just a quick little analysis of this scientific thing here, because episode 4 is very much the action-packed part. All right, remember how I said in the first part that there's 2 climaxes per season? Now, the first climax of this season is the fucking goddamn fight, the Donager. All right, so with that, let's fucking take a quick look at how the Donager fares. We're going to start off here with the Donager, and Holden is now talking to the captain and Commander Lopez, this fella here. You know what, you only see him really in this episode and the previous episode, but he makes a bit of an impression as a guy who wants to do his duty, but at the same time is very interested in what the actual truth of the situation is. And like all good soldiers, wants to actually prevent a war. So I can give him respect for that. So we're just going to carry on into this.
Some kind of game being played here. Maybe someone wants
So Holden basically says that he's not going to listen to them to do their bidding to stop the messages he's put out.
Frequency's open.
Unidentified vessel. This is Captain Teresa Yao of the MCRN Donager. This is your final warning. If you maintain your present course, you will be fired upon.
Jamming us.
And here is where you get to see how good they are. That one ship they thought was actually 6 ships flying in such close formation.
It's more than one ship. I count 6 bandits.
So, and then you see here, they're launching torpedoes. So basically at over, I think it's like over 5,000 kilometers, they'll engage with torpedoes. So you see them over 5,000 kilometers, they engage with torpedoes first, all right? They move in, they're fast movers, they can track for a long time, great mass to thrust ratio. Okay, granted, all right, there's sound in space in this show, all right? It is literally my only grievance is the sound in space. Like, at least Interstellar, despite having fucking Matthew McConaughey and spending $18 billion rescuing Matt Damon as usual. Matt Damon. Fucking, you still, okay, I get it. It's for dramatic effect, and your average idiot layman isn't going to understand that there isn't actually sound in space, and they want to hear space lasers and space phasers and torpedoes and booms, but that is what it is, alright? So, my only grievance, but so you see 6 ships on attack against the Donager. They fired torpedoes, and now we're going to watch what happens when the Donnie fires their torpedoes. Okay, so you see here, we're going to watch the Donager fire its torpedoes. You'll notice that even though the ship is moving in one direction, as soon as the torpedoes clear the tube, they immediately fire off into another direction, which is really neat, because even in space, alright, it's a full 3D environment, and they treat it as such. Like, it's a very fluid environment. You see the ships attacking up, down, left, right. They've got 360-degree coverage. It's just it's a beautiful thing to behold. So, watching them fire, and they're going to swing around. Now, the thing is with this crew here, all right, they have never actually fought a war, all right. The captain will mention later on that the most of the combat that her officers have seen has been in simulators and just simulators. She's the only one on the ship that's actually seen any combat in space, which is just bad news bears, alright? The way I see it is that cockiness, that dependence on their technological superiority is what does these guys in. So, now, they fired their torpedoes. Now, you'll see that there's 3 rings here, okay? Alright, now the first ring you're going to see, this is the outside of guided torpedo range. Alright, this is where their torpedoes are going to be actually effective. Inside here, things move too quick for the targets to track in terms of velocity, angles, thrust to mass ratios, whatnot. Alright, next one, like inside that, is going to be your railgun range, with your effective railgun range right there. Alright, now railguns are fired inside of 5,000 K in the show, and then under 1,000 k to 5. Sorry, what was it? Yeah, I think it's 1,000 kilometers. 5,000 to 1,000 kilometers for railguns before they move too fast for the actual turrets to track. Because you gotta remember, there's still very big turreted weapons that need to move and track. And then you've got PDC range right here, which is inside of, I believe, 5 kilometers on the ship. And you'll get to see their PDCs fire in just a second here, and it's beautiful. Caseless rounds. You don't see any brass, but you actually get to see caseless guns fire really nicely. So, let's continue on with the Donager fight scene. Okay, so this here is where you get to see the PDCs in action against torpedoes coming up. Alright, first they're securing their prisoner. Pretty standard procedure. He's wondering what's going on. You can see a lot of doubt start to creep into what's up with him. Even though they're still being cocky as shit for Martians. So, here it comes. You see the PDCs reach out, engage. And that is just absolutely beautiful. Now you see even the smaller ships have got PDCs as well to fight off their own torpedoes. And then you get to see the slightest cracks in basically their armor. Alright, you see that even though that they're very highly trained, very technologically adept, they're still very much untested. And untested soldiers tend to get jittery, especially when shit starts to really hit the fan. Alright.
Enough of this. Hurry up the railguns. Let's finish this and go home. Aye, sir.
So yeah, you heard there that they're outside of the missile range, or inside missile range now, the ships, and they've got to access and use their railguns now. So, you know, you can actually see that they're tracking some so good. You can actually see individual streams of tracer fire and PDC fire against the torpedoes, which is actually really, really well done. Alright, so I promised you guys railguns, and here they are. Alright, you see the railguns on the Martian ship. Alright, they're a little bit stylized, I get it, but it's still a very, very, very neat system. Alright, so we're gonna just watch these guys light shit right the fuck up. Alright, so they're inside 5,000 kilometers now. That's what these ships are. They're inside the torp range, so we're gonna watch them fire up. You can see that they're still like recoilless guns despite being huge. And you can actually see that these smaller stealth ships have got their own railguns as well. And this shocks the piss out of our Martian heroes. Well, heroes I guess is a pretty heavy word. But you get to see where Alex reveals his true military career here.
Who would be insane enough to take on the Donager in CQB? God damn it, let me out of this chair.
And Alex basically admits to being, you know, a rear echelon fucker for this, and he's a little bit ashamed of it, but at the same time he shouldn't be, because he still served, and you should be proud of that. If you've served, you've served, as long as you weren't, you know, guilty of war crimes or whatever. But here you see Holden absolutely, he understands that something's being played here. And it's so fast-paced, like it's hard to keep a track on it here, alright? So let's unpack this a little bit real quick. Oh wow, I kind of stopped on a shitty part for that guy. You know what? We're gonna stick with it. Looks like he's shitting his pants while the railgun round hits. That's pretty apt, alright? If a railgun's punching holes in my ship, I'm gonna be fucking a little bit shit-pantsed too. So, like I said before, they've got torp range outside of 5,000 K. They've got railguns under 5,000 to 5K. And then you got your PDC cannons. Now you see the PDCs ripping up and down. They're going to punch a lot of small holes in ships. And you'll actually see later on in this series that even though holes are being punched in ships, it isn't an overly big issue, because the crew, like ships will evacuate air back into their holding tanks before they engage in a fight. Smart. It really is. So, they're engaging with PDCs, railguns, torps don't work, and Holden has now seen that this is the same ships that took out the Canterbury and is leading them all to war. And he lets Lopez know, who lets the captain know, and really begins our story of the crew of the night, which will change to the crew of something else by the next episode. So, but with that, we're going to move into the final part, alright, of the Donager fight scene. And this is going to be very fast-paced, because actually, you know what? There's one more part here first that we're going to see, which I'm going to break down, is the scene where you get to see how repairs can be conducted in a decompression environment in space and still be realistic. So let's take a quick look at that here, because now you're going to see how good these railguns are for punching holes in ships. Alright, so here's our fake medic handing out drugs, real drugs, or not drugs, show drugs, and then, oh shit, everyone's just like, oh fuck. And you notice the sound gets a little bit different. There's the hole, you can see clear through to the other side of the ship, and boom. Alright, now you notice it's not like other shows where, you know, if there's a sudden hole in the ship, everything's getting sucked out at Mach Schnell, and, you know, or even, what was it there, Alien Resurrection, where fucking Ripley puts this tiny little pinhole in the window and then manages to shove her giant mutant baby through it, like one atom at a time almost. That's not how it works. You gotta remember that the atmospheric pressure escaping is still only one atmospheric pressure. But yeah, that's a scene that really kind of stuck with me, like how realistic it was, because you'll see them that they don't panic. Like they're well trained despite being just, you know, commercial ice haulers. You know, you see the fact that they keep cool under pressure. You know, they seal up the holes, they follow the emergency procedures, and then they move to figure out who is going to take the sedative to preserve whatever oxygen they got left in the room, because they don't have any vac suits. Alright, so now it's hard vacuum on the outside of that fucking little jail cell they're in. They don't have, so they've got to figure out who's going to take it, fall asleep, and it's Alex, alright, because Amos makes a point that Amos can carry Alex out of there, but Alex can't carry Amos out, and they need Naomi's technical skill. Fair enough, alright, it logical sense, it makes it. It's pretty awesome, actually. And so beyond this point, you see the ship's still getting holes fucking punched right through it like fucking Swiss cheese, and then all of a sudden it stops, and we get to see why, because now they're boarding them to make sure that the ship is destroyed. And yeah, like this next couple of scenes actually brings a bit of a, chokes me up a little bit, because you can see like the cast does so well in this, portraying the sense of duty and hopelessness and just iconic fucking military esprit de corps to get the fucking job done. And like, even though it's like fantasy, science fiction, I get it, and it still just warms my fucking heart, even though they all die in the end. So, but still, it's an awesome scene. So yeah, this ship's moving again. They've managed to fix the holes. Everyone's sort of creeped the fuck out. He's ready to throw up. Don't blame him. That's a pretty big mess. And despite the fact we'll take a panel exploding, it was actually around punching through and hitting him, which was actually really neat. Alright, now moves to it and, you know, kind of gives Lopez a bit of a shock. And we get Holden's explanation.
They stopped firing. Why?
And now you see why they stopped firing. Coming on up. Breaching pods. And
Breaching pods on deck. We're being boarded.
Captain, Miss Van has something to tell you.
Not now, unless
The ships you're fighting are just like the ones that blew up the Canterbury.
the truth. The truth is revealed to these guys, and it shocks the captain, but she realizes now what she's got to do. They're not going to escape the situation, but they have a way to get the truth out, which is what they want to do. Doesn't exactly work out like that for them, but you kind of get it. So Lopez knows.
Lopez, I want you to get Mr. Holden off of this ship and safely back to MCRN command.
And she knows exactly what needs to be done now.
Understood, sir. Take it. Hold on. I'm not going anywhere.
And we get more of Holden's moralizing. Not shocked. You know, he's your, like I said, in the first episode, he's your typical thing.
Make sure you get this
He's your typical hero trope, reluctant hero. And here's where it starts to choke me up. They know they're dead. They absolutely know they're going to die here. But they've still got a duty to do. And you see Naomi go on to a rather long-winded explanation of how fucked they are. And, well, I've already explained how fucked they are, so we don't need to fucking revisit that nonsense. So at this point, fucking, we really do figure out that, you know, there's a game being played. No one really knows what's going on yet, but Mars realizes they're up against an enemy that's just as technologically advanced as they are, that's manipulating them. Manipulating Earth, manipulating the belt, alright? So they gotta run to Mars or get Holden to Mars as fast as they can. While this happens, they're still being boarded to prevent just that from happening. And we see some of the crazy tech that the fucking boarders have, who we still don't know who they are. And other than, you know, just the silent enemy or whatever the fuck they want to call themselves. And we get it. So, basically, Holden is now being led out of there by Lopez while the ship's being boarded. Alright, so they've got to fight their way through borders to get to their escape vessel, which we still don't know what it is yet, but we get to see it, and fuck me, is it amazing. And, basically during this going on, fucking they run into the enemy that's just as advanced as them technologically and just as capable. And it throws the Martians for a loop. So they make their mad dash cannonball run to get the fuck out of Dodge. And that's when we get to see fucking the captain here. And you get to see basically when they know that they're about to die. And this is where, you know, I said that before, I get it, and it makes me, it really does evoke a lot of emotion, and I'm huge kudos to the fucking cast for managing to pull this off. Like, even making someone like me, a fucking vet, who's been in these situations before, believe that they know that they're going to die, it's just amazing. Oh yeah, look at there, condition 0. And just a little aside, that option 0 is an option that you could use in the old Homeworld game to kamikaze your ships or scuttle them.
Not yet.
So that's kind of where I chose it from.
Has to count for something.
And I get it, and that's where you get to see their escape, right there. After the crew makes their mad cannonball dash, and Holden managed to make a deal with Lopez to rescue the remainder survivors of the Canterbury in a deus ex machina that fucking just blows my mind, that somehow they all still managed to survive despite a larger amount of time passing than the original predicted time that they figured the oxygen was going to last, but artistic license. So we got the crew on the Tachi, which is a Martian Corvette class light frigate. Yeah, that's confusing as fuck. Corvettes and light frigates are two different classes, but they call this one the Corvette class light frigate. Yeah. You fucking Navy boys. I don't get it. I'll keep my feet on the fucking firm dirt, thank you. But, yeah, you get to see how capable this ship that they're about to inherit is. Because after this, they don't go to Mars. They fucking make a mad dash for it. So they've managed to get in there through a hail of gunfire. They toss Alex up in the pilot's seat. And here's where he gets his adventure that he was always missing, where he gets to fulfill his full potential, and why I love their character. Here's the other thing. You'll notice the orientation of the ship. Again, like a skyscraper. Alright? All the fucking enemies are firing on them. See the reaction thrusters as they move in 0G inside the ship. The weapons loadout. Oh, this is just so beautiful. You get to see... And the barrels don't rotate. You'll notice the rounds fill each one of the barrels and then fire. And then punching out, and now they're making their escape out the hole.
Basic maneuvers. Max burn.
Now,
Not let anyone stay on our tail.
Lopez has been shot a bunch of times, so is Amos.
Yes, sir.
And that right there, that's just basic military training kicking in. We all go through it from time to time.
To see an ocean on Mars.
The Martian Dreamer. He knows he's dying, and again, like, huge bravo to the fucking cast for actually making me actually feel something. And here it comes. Condition 0.
Captain, this door won't hold much longer.
And this sums it all up.
I think we could lose.
Wow. Like, just acting and the music and everything. Yep. It's a very rare show that can make me fucking, like, get invested like that. Now, all you naysayers know, I cut out a lot of shit in there, especially where Miller starts to go down the rabbit hole, but Miller's rabbit hole really isn't an integral part to this part of the story, alright? We discover that she's left the station. We see the introduction of Fred Johnson, alright, the other big player in the OPA belt. But I want to save his introduction for the next episode because it does it so much better than how this episode brings him in. Like, I find that the next episode really does Fred Johnson justice in explaining his entrance, and as well as Kamina's entrance into the other two big players of the belt. So, while I know I glossed over the rabbit hole that fucking Miller and Dimitri go down, like, this episode very much is just CQB, alright? This is the episode that does it, that fucking gets you hooked with its action and its beautiful cinematic style and the perfect mix of music and acting. And I know that the crews die, but, like, you get invested. Even though you only see these crew members for just minutes, you get invested in them. And, like, that's a rare show that can do that for me. Alright? Game of Thrones is one. Okay, I get it. Fox, yes. Don't even fucking say it, alright? I know that you're going to say Game of Thrones in space, but it's not. Alright? It's not Game of Thrones in space. Similar, but not. So, yeah. Alright, so with that, we're going to kind of slowly wrap this up. I'm going to give you a little outro and synopsis, alright? This is really where the story begins to take off, and you get to see where everything begins to unfold. Alright? Now, yeah. So we'll wrap this up by saying, okay, in this episode we've seen how the juxtaposition of the individual crews in episode 3, alright? They give you the impression that they're the opposite of who they actually are, alright? And then you got Avasarala, the Viper, who literally trashes a family friend's dream to try and save her own home, alright?
See, here's the thing. I was terrified for you. I didn't know why. And now I do. You will do anything to win, just like your father. That's what got him killed. I won't play with you. Ever again.
That is some fucking Margaret O. Parangosky level fucking heartlessness right there. but you understand why. I don't approve of it, but you understand why. Now, moving on to that, we see the fucking Donager get fucking just wrecked. Alright, they fucking wandered into this fight thinking they were the biggest, baddest, toughest cocksucker around, and they got fucked hard by a more capable opponent. And you get to see the crew escape in the Tachi, which will have a whole new name for it next episode. And actually the ship goes through several names and iterations, but we get to learn the crew's name for the ship next episode, and it's beautiful. So, I know I didn't spend as much time gushing as this one. It was more just a breakdown of some of the clips and videos and some of the behaviors of the characters. Alright. Again, episode 3, very political, very story-driven. Episode 4 has a little bit of politics, a little bit of story, but is mostly just an action sequence. And the action sequence still manages to set up the story. It manages to drive it forward. It introduces several great plot points. We get to see the introduction of Fred Johnson, even though I didn't include him in this video because I want to do him in the next video because I want to do him proper justice. We've seen Anderson Dawes be introduced, one of the big players in the belt, you know, one of the household names, as it were. Alright? And we see Christian Avasarala understand what her drive to save her home has cost her. And we'll even get to see that even more in the next episode. Alright? So, touching on that, I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown, reaction, review of The Expanse, episodes 3 and 4. Remember the Cant and CQB, aka Close Quarters Battle. Alright, I love this show. I can't say enough good things about it. There's so very few flaws with it that I just... It's hard. It really is hard to find flaws in this show, aside from, like, you know, flaws that can be literally explained away by artistic license and trying to draw a more broad audience to it, like the sounds in space, the behaviors of some of the characters. We get it. We get to see them start to really reveal their true selves in these 2 episodes. Especially you see Holden reveal himself in terms of how he is willing to literally let the whole solar system burn to try and save 5 people that he condemned to possible death through his own good intentions. And that really sets the scene. And you get to see how the characters really set themselves up. Like I said, Amos, dangerous loyal. Naomi Nagata, bit of a mysterious possible terrorist. Alright, the medic's dead. Oh well. And the Martian who wants more adventure and wants to fulfill his full potential, who is going to get his wish in spades. And the other great thing that I love about the show is, like, if you watch the Tachi there when he pops in, you'll notice they're all using small touch screens. Not a whole lot of physical interfaces, because gravity increases with the ship's thrust. So you want touch, like very sensitive touches to control things. Like the joysticks, you don't really see them. You see more of a touchpad approach to controlling ships, almost like a mouse. Alright, you know, they can tilt it one way or the other, move it around, move the ship around, adjust thrust, vectors, and whatnot. And I imagine there's a good deal of training involved, but how much thought they put into the science of this show really shows how much they give a fuck. And that's, again, one of the major reasons why I can get behind it, and why I hope you get behind it too, alright? I didn't want to spoil too much plot in this. Not yet, anyway, because there's going to be plenty of spoilers ahead, but pick the show up. Pick the books up, alright? The books are by J.A. Comey. It's actually 2 authors who write this, and they do a great job. But yeah, they do a great job, and you know what? The books are definitely different from the TV show. A lot like Game of Thrones, but you know what? They're still both great mediums in their own right. So pick up the books, pick up the show, watch it. I believe actually season 4 is starting this week. I believe it actually premieres tonight. So keep an eye out for that. Like I don't have Amazon. I think it's on Amazon. Amazon streaming. I don't have it myself, so I'm gonna have to pick that up in the next night. So yeah. All right, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this. And again, pick up the show. It's amazing. You won't be disappointed. You love science fiction. You love drama. You love political intrigue. This is the show. So, peace.